Steve Eden Grower Creedmoor coming to you from my happy place. Y'all can see I'm standing in front of my muscadine grapes. The subject of today's discussion is going to be sugar and how we know whether or not our fruits have sugar in it. Those of you that follow me on Facebook, occasionally you'll hear me discussing the concept of measuring the sugar and measuring the carbohydrates in our leaves and in our fruit, or in our stems for that matter. And the tool that we use to do that is actually called a refractometer. And it looks like this, and I'm going to show it to you. We use that particular tool, and a tool that y'all may be familiar with. I'm pretty sure most of the kitchens in America might have this. Down here in the South, we call it a garlic press. Anyway, you put a piece of garlic or a clove inside here and you press it and you can get some of the juices out of it. What we're looking to do is we're going to take a couple of grapes. We're going to squeeze those grapes using this garlic press. I'm going to put a small amount of juice onto my refractometer. I'm going to hold it up to the light and it's going to tell me, well, it's going to tell me pretty much whatever the sugar content is going to be within that fruit or within that sample. Let's get started. Okay, so right here we can see those tools up close, and I'm actually able to show you a couple of the muscadine grapes that I went ahead and grabbed. This is a plum variety. As far as I know, it's typical of them to get this large, but we still get plenty of them that are this large. I probably won't test this one because it's so ripe. I actually think you can't see this. I'm going to just put it in my mouth. Holy cow. It's so sweet. Alright, let me cut that out. Y'all didn't come here to watch me eat grapes, did you? Anyway, this little bugger right here, which looks like I lost my little press plate. Somewhere nearby, I'm sure. This is what we use to squeeze the juice out of, in this case, a grape. We could use a small piece of an apple. We could use part of a peach. We could use pretty much anything, but in this case, all I have to do, because it fits, is stick it right in there like that. Once I stick it right in there like that, I'm going to lay that over as though I was actually just squeezing a little bit of garlic. I'm going to give it a squeeze, and I'm going to let it drip right onto this little window, this little glass window. Watch. Super easy. Right there you can see I put a single drop. I didn't even really have to squeeze too much. Just enough to get me a single drop of the juice that came out of whatever fruit I'm going to go ahead and test. If you had a juice in a jar or juice in a glass, or you had enough, you could utilize this. Just grab a little bit and then put a little bit on there. Pretty simple, pretty easy. Then we're going to go ahead and we're going to lay this lid over the top. And I think you can see where it sort of spread out. And then you'll get a reading inside this window. And that reading is going to tell you exactly what percentage of sugars are available. We are looking at exactly 12 bricks of sugar. Let's see if I can show you all this. Okay, so just for a second, y'all can see that blue line form right there. That's right at 12. Okay? Okay. So to make myself perfectly clear, standing here in a little bit of light, you put your eye here, and the sunlight goes here. Or any light. You can do this indoors, you can do it outside. The only reason I'm using the sunlight right now is because I'm outside and I'm in the garden. But all you want to do is illuminate the solution that's on the little viewer. And then inside the prism, it's going to show you exactly where the sugars sit. It's going to give you a great idea. I've used it to great effects. I always test my apples, I test my grapes, I test my blueberries, I test all of those fruits that I really like to be sweet. And in addition to testing those fruits, I'll also test the leaves on a lot of my vegetables. See, the funny thing is that once we get our sugar ratio up to about 12, very few insects will infect our plants. The greater the level of sugar concentration is within the leaf structure or within the fruit, the more resistant that plant and that fruit is going to be to predation. Healthy plants are sweet and have lots of sugars in them. Healthy trees, fruit trees, and fruiting bushes, it's the same scenario, folks. If they have lots and lots of sugars contained within their stems and within their leaves, more often than not, you don't have to do anything about the insects that might be attracted to plants nearby them. That doesn't mean that they won't suffer from the occasional insect or two, but it does mean on the whole, well, for one thing, they'll photosynthesize better, so their leaves will be greener. In addition to that, they'll process the nutrients in the soil more efficiently, especially if you've got great level of complementary soil biome that already exists at the feet of the plant. And you're going to find that more often than not, when you have a sugar reading that's upwards of 12 Brix, 13 or 14 Brix, those fruits are amazingly sweet. And is there an explanation for why it is that sweeter sugar takes on less predators? There could be. There really is. I like to use the aphids as an example. The aphids are mining those sugars from the plants themselves. They do so in sort of a symbiotic relationship that they share with ants. So ants, being the overlords that they are, they indenture them to this process. But aphids, you know, taking the honeydew is exactly what they do, so it's not like the ants are pushing them into something that they're not already capable of doing. So this relationship goes on and on and on. And the ants, in order to facilitate this for the aphids, they want to put those aphids on a plant that's not going to have a lot of other predators on it. But one thing I do know, I'm standing here in front of Mike and Kim, my two grapes. You know, they're very old. They've been established for quite some time. They're here almost a decade. They push sweet grapes every single year. The one thing that I don't often see with them is insect predation. It's fairly rare. All around me there might be aphids, there might be Japanese beetles, there might be whiteflies. There's a plethora of different insects here in the southeast of the United States. But where they aren't is on my grapes. Similar treatment can be said for my apple trees that I do occasionally apply sugar concentrates to. And because I've applied these sugar concentrates to them, I'm able to raise the leaf bricks, or the concentration of sugars within the younger leaves. That's a benefit of making these applications periodically. And it helps me to assure that I might get a better crop. I'll get a sweeter crop, I'll get a more consistent crop, and I'll get something that I can appreciate at the plate and the dinner table. So aphids and insects like that, they don't necessarily want the sweetest stuff, because the sweetest stuff also has another accompaniment: wasps and ladybugs. For instance, in my apple trees, the ladybugs, they're born and bred there because my apple trees already are inundated with ladybugs breeding. So that's not a great place to be an aphid, to be right in the middle of all that hostility. One of the things that I've noticed when I do make my sugar applications to my plants, and we'll get into that as soon as I'm done with my blah blah blah, is that wasps already appreciate the same things. They appreciate eating those small insects, and they know when they find plants that have some level of sugar to them, they're also going to find those insects. So it makes sense to consider that if the plants have a lot of sugar, they may also have a great attraction to the wasps and to the other predators. There are several predators that I find right now traveling around within my garden. In particular is the lacewing. That's another great one. It's an aphid eater. Of course, we have the ladybugs, the lady beetles, the Asian version, and the one that's a contemporary version that's usually here. That's here as well. This time of the season, we're also seeing the mantis is starting to do its thing. As the end of the season draws nearer, they are mating, they are forming their chrysalis, they are producing their next year's offspring. So it's important to note that at a time like this, where it's critical to be really, really careful about what we put on our plants, I don't have any reservations about treating my plants for sugar content. And the reason for that is none of the sugar that I'm applying to my plants is toxic to the pollinators. None of it is toxic to the beneficial soil organisms either. As a matter of fact, if any of this drips down onto the soil below, the bacteria and the fungi, they love the stuff. So any of the natural soil decomposers are going to have a field day with these applications. So let me get into a little bit of the process. I might use this tester right here to measure my leaf bricks, and I might find my leaf bricks to be down around 8 or 7. That's sort of synonymous with starting to see some of the insects that come around in the spring. and I know that's not a great place. It's not a great place for the plant to be. So what I'll do is I'll mix between 2 and 4 ounces of organic dextrose. It's the sugar that's made from corn. It's important for me to mention this. I use the organic version because I don't want the version that's made from Roundup or with the presence of Roundup. I want to know that those salts aren't included in the sugar that I'm using. That might be great if I was trying to to kill my plants, but in the case of, well, why I'm trying to put more sugar into the plants is as a method to ward off the insects that feed on the sugars and the honeydews. So if I can do that effectively early in the season by raising the leaf bricks of whatever it is that I may be growing, and it really makes no difference what type of plant it is, they all need photosynthesis, they all require chlorophyll, they all require some bit of soluble nitrogen, they all require the ability to take the sun's energy and process that into the nutrients and the sustain that they need so that they can move through their different levels of growth without any hindrance or without any restriction. Insects that infect your plants early in the season produce just that, restriction to the progress of growth, right? So here we have a scenario where I just described. I have a Brix rating of 8. We measured it. Let's just say it was on my broccoli behind me. I know that a rating of 8, I'm probably going to see lots of white flies. So what I want to do is I want to go ahead and make my dextrose mixture. I'm going to put it in my regular 2-gallon pump sprayer because I want to atomize that liquid. And all it contains is some good, clear, clean, non-chlorinated water that we already know that the plants associate well with, and 2 to 4 ounces of organic dextrose per gallon. It mixes really, really well. It sprays really, really well. It leaves a little bit of a glossy look to the plant. I like to do this typically before the temperature's risen above 85 degrees Fahrenheit. And if I can accomplish that, be it early or after, it could be early in the day or it could be after the sun has already done its stuff, it makes not much difference. But I prefer to apply it when the solar intensity is not too harsh, okay? Rains that do follow will wash it off to some degree, but I find that when the temperature is below about 85 degrees, the little mouths on the underside of the leaves are super receptive to amendments. After about 85 degrees, they start to close up to conserve moisture loss and to prevent any negative impacts from the environment. So there really isn't a whole lot of point in applying any of these sugar solutions to your plants if the stomata is closed, if the plants are not feeding, if they're not respiring actively, if they are already in a state of protect and preserve. So that being said, I can tell you with 100% certainty, my grapes, they are fed at the beginning of the season, they are fed at the end of the season. I do use fish emulsion as my main feed for them. They occasionally will receive some beneficial compost teas because within those teas I put BT, and that's just simply a bacteria culture that works towards preventing things like worms and even actually the Japanese beetle, which we know overwinters in the soil below the grapes. It prevents them from getting past the larval stage. Since they're not passing the larval stage, well, the larval stage is when many of those in-ground grubs are feeding on roots and feeding on decomposing matter in the ground. But after they get past that, they emerge as young adults, and then they start feeding from the leaves. So keeping your leaves sweet, making sure the leaf Brix is up above 12 is going to be an instrumental tool that you can use. How many applications it takes to go from 8 to 12? Well, that depends on the nutrient absorption of your plants and their leaves. Obviously, a healthier plant is going to take in the nutrients faster than a plant that's stressed out. So if you have a plant that's been consumed by insects and it's just in a tough place, the first thing you've got to do is revitalize that plant, get it on the right track, get it microbiologically sound at its feet, get it to where it's pushing some new growth. And once you know it's pushing some new growth, then you can go ahead and start altering its carbohydrate content upwards. And you'll start to see the benefits in the brand new leaves that come on. You won't see the benefits in the old leaves. It really, the sugar application is not going to fix. It's not going to be a fix for a leaf that's already been decimated by insects. That leaf doesn't even have the ability to regenerate itself. So when you look past that and you start seeing this is what really happens, the old leaves will take the sugar concentrate into them. They'll transfer it to the phloem and the xylem inside the tree so it can transport up and down through the roots, to the roots, and up to the leaves and the tips of all the other branches and stems. So once that happens, any new leaf that is born of the tree in that growth cycle is going to be sweeter. It's very simple to test for this, because all you have to do is make your application. Once you start seeing a sufficient amount of leaves, you can do the same exact thing. Grab a handful of those leaves, compress the juice out of them, put them on that little window right there, which by the way is now sugary, sweet, and sticky, and hold it up to the sunlight or any light. Maybe the sunlight's not the best place to hold it. Really, folks, I'm standing in the shade, so I'm just picking up the edge of the sunlight. We don't really look directly into the sun. I'm not a plant. Anyway, that's pretty much what I got to say on this. This particular device right here, it comes with its own little case. It has its own little dropper to use and a tool to adjust it for accuracy. I've never had to adjust it for accuracy. It came accurate right out of the box. What else can I say? I believe I gave $15 for this. So really, folks, $15 so that you know whether or not you're going to have sweet apples, sweet peaches, sweet pears, sweet grapes, or sweet whatever. You want sweet tomatoes? They follow by the same rules. Aphids love tomatoes. Peppers, same thing. You want sweet peppers or you want sour, salty ones? I know which ones I want. This takes me closer to it. This helps me manage insects in my garden by allowing my plants to have what they need to do the job on their own. Does it make sense? It really does make sense. And if it resonates with you because you've had some issues with these problems in the past, because you've had some aphids, because you've had, well, trouble, click the like, click the subscribe, share the video too. This is something I often don't suggest doing because, well, it usually slips my mind. But it'd be a really great idea. If there's someone that you love and you know they're having problems with the same things, buy them one of these for their gardener's birthday. Simple stuff. It's great. Enrich your life. Enrich the life of those around you. Live better. Be better. And peace to all. Y'all be good.